of the poll kind of surprised me, and I'm trying to see if this was an anomaly or how much of this actually holds true. And I'm going to actually take the poll again in a second. I want everybody to get a chance to come in. Quick housekeeping note. Number one, Powernomics trainings tonight at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. So if you have an interest in Powernomics and you're a Dr. Claude Anderson person like me, then you can join us tonight. We're reading Dr. Claude Anderson books and learning from the GOAT. We've been doing this for about 6 or 7 years now. And Dr. Anderson sends his regards, by the way. All right, and so what else is happening? Pretty soon, I know yesterday Dr. Alicia did a great job in terms of breaking down financial trauma and trauma healing, so that you can become a better investor, so your fear doesn't slow you down. And so what I'll do is today, if you want to go take a look at the recording of that, I'll share a link where you can get access to the recording. There's a small fee attached, but I guarantee you it'll be worth it. It's on Dr. Alicia's platform, so I'm gonna show respect to her for giving her time for this. And the other thing here today is I wanted to actually go in and share. There's a video that I saw with my good friend Killer Mike, who's a rapper, and Killer Mike said some interesting things. I don't even know how recent this interview was, but he was speaking about education, and I thought that I would talk about that because it really takes me back to something I was thinking about recently, and we can kind of go through that. So before I start on that too, I want to mention the stock market's still on fire. I think we made more money today, so that's good. Enjoy it while it lasts, because as I always tell you, it doesn't last forever. A lot of your stocks are doing extremely well. This might be an opportunity for you to go ahead and protect your investments. So if you like put options, do some put options. If you like stop loss orders, maybe you look into that. If you want to just take some money off the table and go on a trip or put the money toward real estate or something, this might be a good time to do that because the market doesn't stay this strong forever. So keep that in mind as you invest. And it's my job to warn you about the dark side of all this. I'm looking here to see if the market hit a new all-time high today. Let me see. Yeah, I think it's the Dow. I think the Dow's at an all-time high again. It's up slightly, but yeah. So generally speaking, a lot of this is being driven by AI. AI is just enhancing productivity at a very high level. It's gotten people very excited. The expectations are through the roof, and there's no indicator that it's really going to slow down. There's a concern that you could have a stock market crash, but you never know when it's going to happen, and we've mentioned that before, and that becomes the complication. It's like we know what's going to happen, but we don't know when. Don't try to guess it. The researchers already have. They weren't able to do that. All right, so let me ask you all a question. I really got to ask this question. All right, so this involves investing, right? I want to ask about your childhood, okay? And in fact, I'm gonna name this poll childhood question. And so here's the question I'm going to ask you on this poll. And I want everybody to answer. Everybody inside the Zoom, I'd like you to answer. If you're not in the Zoom, you can't answer because I can't send it to everybody. But if you're in the Zoom, I want you to answer this question. Um, did you learn about stocks as a child? Like, did somebody talk to you, let's say more than twice, more than once or twice, about stock market investing at some point when you were a kid, maybe at the dinner table, something like that? I'm gonna save this poll really quick and I'm gonna share it, and I want everybody to answer it for me if you can, because I want to just see. I'm doing a little test right now. Here we go. I'm launching the poll. You should see it on your screen if you're in the Zoom. And if you're not in the Zoom, you can just put your answer in the chat if you want to. But I want to really see what the results are. When you were a kid, did somebody just say, hey, here's what the stock market is. Here's why you want to be a part of it. This is what you want to do when you grow up. If you like money, you should be here because this is where most of the money is located. This is where the most wealth is created. Did anybody have that conversation? Let's say more than once. Like somebody just said, "Hey, by the way, remember that stock market conversation we had? Let's talk about that again." Anybody? Okay, so answer me, and I'm going to show you the results. And I'm just going to tell you, man, if I'm hoping that I don't always know how to I don't know how to I'm not a rapper, so I don't know how to say things in a way that sounds catchy and persuasive. I'm not a comedian, so I don't know how to say things in a way that's going to make you laugh all the time. I'm not a charismatic speaker that knows how to lure you in with smooth words. I ain't a mega pastor who can get you screaming hallelujah. I don't know how to do none of that. But I'm asking you if you'll hear me when I explain to you why the results of this poll literally tell you almost everything you need to know about black wealth. They tell you almost everything you need to know. This I promise you, this is probably one of the most important pieces of information you will ever get from me in all the years you may have known me or will know me. So let me show you the results of this poll. When I asked you all the childhood question, were you introduced to stocks as a kid? Did somebody have more than one conversation with you about stocks? 91% of you said no. 91% of you said no. Now, I need you to understand how heavy this is. This floored me. Last night, I did a presentation. I did my training, How to Make Money Without Working, to some students that were in there. And there's about 100 and maybe 120 people in the room. And I just asked that question casually. I kid you not. In all the years I've been doing this, I thought it would be like 20%, 15% yes, 25%. No, it was 0% in that room. In that room, not one single person had been introduced to stock market investing as a kid. And I need you to understand that this how I need you to just sort of sit with me and realize how tragically uncomfortable I am with that number. I am blown away by this. Because I guarantee you that if I was to ask you how many of you were told to get a job when you were a kid, it'd be like 95%, 100% of you. Right? And or if I said, how many of you were introduced to shopping, going shopping at the mall and buying expensive stuff for Christmas? A lot of you would say yes. But when I say, how many of you were introduced to the greatest wealth creator in American history? 9% of you in this room said yes, and you're kind of in the elite category. That the fact that it's 9% is actually higher than it would be if I was to grab a random group of African American people on the street. I'm going to pause on that for a minute, and I hope you'll allow me to do this because I need you to understand that if you want to understand the racial wealth gap in a nutshell, that tells you everything you need to know. If you point at any group of people, black, white, green, otherwise, and you said only 9% of those people were ever introduced to the stock market, even conceptually, forget investing, forget actually buying stock. I'm talking about just even having a freaking conversation. Now, only 9% of this community was introduced to stock market investing as kids. And you said to me, as a financial scientist, I'm a financial surgeon. That's what we do. And when you get a doctorate in finance, you study the same thing for 8 years straight, 10 hours a day. So if you were to ask me, what do you think would be the economic condition of that group of people? I would say, well, of course they're going to be poor. Like, well, because the stock market is where most of the money's at. If you want to have money, you got to go where the money's at, right? I mean, if I want to go to the beach, I got to go to a city that has warm weather. I can't go to the beach in Alaska. I'm not going to find sunny weather in Alaska, especially not in the wintertime. I'm not going to. Right? So why would you go if I want water, why are you hanging out in the damn desert? They don't have no water in the desert. There's not much vegetation there. You're gonna get poked in the ass by a cactus. That's the most that's gonna happen to you in the desert, or bit by a scorpion, but you ain't gonna find no water in the desert. So part of the reason, write this down. Tell your kids, tell your baby mama, tell your grandma, tell everybody you meet. The number one reason for the racial wealth gap, the reason that it exists and the reason that it continues to grow is because culturally speaking, we don't even talk about the place where the most wealth is being created. We don't make that part of our culture. That's not part of our standard conversation. We run away from the money and then wonder why we ain't got no money. Well, if you run away from money, then you won't have no money. Just like it's like a bad relationship. You ever see somebody that every time somebody loves them, they start running? And then they wonder why they don't have love in their life. Well, because every time God blesses you with love, you want to run in the other direction. You need therapy, son. You need to go see a medical doctor because something's going on psychologically that's making you do the things that are in contrast, that are the exact opposite of what you claim to want to do. I want to lose weight, but I eat Cheetos before I eat vegetables. You're not gonna lose weight like that. I want to be healthy, but I drink like a fish and I just consume alcohol until I pass out every day. I want to get in shape, but whenever I see a gym, I run away from the gym and I run to the Dairy Queen. You're not going to lose weight like that. So when I saw that poll last night, I said I paused. I stopped for about 5 minutes. I said, I'm sorry, I'm really pissed off about this. This is shocking. Blows my mind. As much as I've talked about money and finance, I've probably done 30,000 videos on this topic. One day we counted. We were at 25,000, but that was 5 years ago. I've done 30,000 videos on this topic, taught tons of classes, been doing this for a long time, but never once did I stop to actually do that, a simple poll like that. So what I'm saying to you is that if you want to have wealth, go where the money's at. It's like just like if I want to be a football player, I'm going to go to a football field. If I want to learn how to dance, I'm going to go to dance class. If I want to meet a girl, I'm not going to go to the gay bar. Okay, that's where you're not going to meet girls at the gay bar. If you're a dude, you're going to meet dudes. So if you want to meet a woman, you go where the women are, right? So the same thing is true here. If you want money, then go where the money's at. The stock market is where the money's located. That does that make sense? I hope you can forgive me for belaboring that point, but it's really important. And the results of that poll just floor me. And so if we simply change that number, that one number from 9% in this generation to say 70, 80%, that right there will close the racial wealth gap tremendously because you got two problems with the racial wealth gap. One is that it exists in the first place. We know why it exists, right? We know about the racism. We know about all these issues, the reparations that we know about all that. We know what they did. We know what they took. And that's something that I personally take significant issue with. I'm not supporting any politician that won't address that. But then bigger question is not why the gap exists. The question is why does it keep getting wider? Why does it keep getting wider? Why are they predicting that black wealth is going to be lower 30 years from now than it is right now? Well, because they're looking at the trajectory. They're looking at not where the car is located. They're looking at the direction of the car. They say, okay, your goal is to go north, but you're driving south at 100 miles an hour, and so you're not only going to be further away from your destination than you were in the beginning, but you're driving a little bit reckless and you might crash into a wall. So either you're going to end up far away from your destination or you're going to end up dead. One of the two. Something bad's going to happen because we're looking at the trajectory and the method by which you're attempting to solve this problem. So if you want to make money, the simplest rule of making money is go where the money's at. The stock market's where the money's at. The biggest wealth driver in America is the stock market. Number two would be something like maybe real estate. And then if you want to make a lot of or build wealth really quickly, then learning entrepreneurship is critically important for that as well. All right, so let's jump into the next topic. All right, so I got to mark it off my list. I put it on my list. That's how important it was. All right. So anyway, for those of you that, just so you know, let's go. Let's take a little field trip to my Instagram real quick. My Instagram is Dr. Boyce Finance, and I want to show you some stuff on the Instagram that I thought would make interesting talking points for today's class. And so give me a second. Let me dig this thing up. And by the way, if you want to join us tonight for Powernomics training, just text the word greatness on your phone to the number 87948. So if you text greatness to 87948, I will invite you to Powernomics training. It starts tonight at 8:30. We're reading Dr. Claude Anderson's book. It's called Dirty Little Secrets. It's somewhere in my office. I got the books everywhere. I gotta dig it up. It's somewhere around here, but we're probably on like page 200 and something. All right, so here's some things on the page I wanted to share with you. Number one, yesterday, Dr. Alicia, in her breakdown, she basically worked with about 150 of you and helped you to assess your financial trauma, recognize your wounds, reveal the patterns. Also, she helped the students, to build a powerful financial covenant, which is really important, so that you don't allow your trauma to stop you from investing. You don't allow your fear to cause you to make bad financial decisions. She also talks about triggers. Triggers are big. You ever see like a person just act crazy, like lose their freaking mind over something small? That person was triggered. Well, people that get triggered easily typically are heavily traumatized people who haven't healed from their trauma. And she actually gave methods on managing your triggers so your triggers don't cause you to pull the trigger on yourself and destroy something that's valuable, like your wealth or your relationships. And relationships are a form of wealth. Also, she talks about breaking integrity beaches before they break you. Part four was healing financial trauma, restoring confidence through regulation and story. So basically, she took everyone through the process of identifying the trauma and diagnosing it, and to understanding it, to actually fixing it, so that you can make better choices. A lot of wealth gets lost because people get freaked out and traumatized when they see their wealth go down. I was listening to Melody Hobbs talk the other day. Melody Hobbs is a really smart lady who she's really good with investing. She works with another guy that I really like named John Rogers out of Chicago with Ariel Investments. And she was talking about loaning money to family. And I looked at Melody's background, and she was raised by a single mom. She was one of, I think, about 5 or 6 kids. And I got a sense that there was a lot of financial trauma in her upbringing that drives a lot of her economic decisions. And she married this really rich guy. You might have heard of him. His name is George Lucas. And George Lucas is the guy who created Star Wars. And his net worth is about $5.3 billion. $5.3 billion. And I listened to Melody talk, who I really respect. I think she's super smart. And she was talking about loaning money to relatives. And she mentioned that a couple things that were interesting. She was talking about how she gets asked for money a lot, which that's going to happen when you marry, a rich white man and or even a rich black man. But you married the Star Wars guy, so I guess that's going to happen. And she said that she was talking to a white lady, and the white lady had said something like, you loan money to your family. And she said, me and the other black people were like, yeah, right. And so I don't know why she brought that up. I don't know why she said it that way. I don't know if she was saying it because that's just what we have to do, because as black people, we have more problems to solve typically than other people do. Or if she was saying it as if like, well, because the white lady said it's a bad thing, that we should all think it's a bad thing. And she mentioned something interesting in terms of, speaking of her mother. She said, my mother saw me as her retirement plan. And then she mentioned how she deals with relatives borrowing money. She said that she tells them to go talk to Tom, if they want to go borrow money. I thought that was really interesting. On one hand, I can only imagine the amount of pressure that you would go through if you marry a billionaire, right? You're going to have everybody coming at you for money from every direction. It's quite overwhelming. I think people ask me for money about 8 times a week. I think that's about my average. And so I get it affects you. I don't even like to answer the phone because I'm like, oh, there's probably somebody who's going to ask me for something. It's kind of what it is, right? But it comes with the territory. It's fine. But the other part of it too was I was really curious about her perception of family and family asking for financial help and stuff like that. So a couple of things that came to mind was one, when she mentioned that the white woman was shocked that the black people in the room help out their family members. um, I think that's okay, actually. I think that that's something. I kind of think that if you're part of a group or a family and you're doing really well, you married the rich white guy who came in with $5.3 billion in net worth, why shouldn't the whole hood kind of benefit on some level? Now, obviously, you have to have boundaries with that, right? There has to be, you can't just go throwing money away. That's how you go broke. But I'm kind of like, yeah, I mean, if I have a cousin that was down for me back when I had no money and a parent that took care of me when nobody else would, whatever, then yeah, I'm gonna try to create opportunities for other people. And I don't doubt that she's doing that. I hope that that's the case. The other thing that was interesting to me was when she said my mother saw me as part of her retirement plan, and I listened to that and I was like, I don't know, I don't, is that a bad thing? Because here's the thing, like, so my mother. I don't know if my mother saw me as part of her retirement plan, but I was happy to be part of her retirement plan because my mother was part of. She was part of my existence plan. She was part of my birth plan. She sat there with the lady came, the nice white lady came from Planned Parenthood and said, just go ahead and abort the baby, and this little Negro won't be a problem for you. She's the one that took on the massive responsibility of giving birth to me with no money at all in the bank, right? So I'm kind of like, what's harder, right? What would be more difficult? If my husband or wife, I would never have a husband, of course, but if my spouse was worth 5.3 billion and I gotta pop a couple million over to mama to make sure she's comfortable in retirement, which is harder for me to throw mama a couple million or for a person to literally dedicate their life to raising me, literally give birth to me, that's painful enough, but then deal with my little ass, my little bad ass for 18, 20, 30 years, right? Where I'm literally doing nothing but pretty much taking from my mother and she's giving to me. Again, I'm not criticizing what Melody Hobbs said, but I was like, yeah, I kind of think you should be your mother's retirement plan. Your mama hit the lotto. Right? Her daughter done married this wealthy white man, George Lucas, and he's got $5 billion. Yeah, I don't see a problem with breaking off something for mama. Right now, if mama is on crack, that's a different story. If mama is a sociopath that will come steal for you, then that's a problem, right? But if mama is just a person who dedicated her life to raising you, if anything deserves funding or salary or compensation, I would say that's it. I think every mama deserves some reparations for dealing with all the stuff that a mother has to deal with raising kids. Same thing with a great father. Um, and because so what I really was processing was I said I know that with all the wealth you have, you're investing in lots of things. You're writing lots of checks to lots of people, and what I will see sometimes is I will see black celebrities, not that Melody's in this category because I don't know her like that. I met John Rogers. He was a very nice guy. Melody, I don't know, but I see celebrities, prominent black people that come into hundreds of millions of dollars and they write massive checks to, you'll hear about Jay-Z partnering with some white boy in Silicon Valley and he'll be writing a check for $5 or $10 million to be part of that partnership. But there's something about black people where when the black family or black relatives or black people from where you came are also show up and say, well, hook us up too, write a check for us too. And maybe not even on some like bummy stuff or some begging sort of energy. Maybe it's like I need an investor. The checks get much smaller, and then there's sort of like this what's the word? I'm not gonna say resistance, but kind of like this contempt. Like, how dare you ask me to support you in the way you supported me back when I was a nobody? Like now that I'm somebody. And then she said something at the end that didn't sit well with me. She said, I tell my relatives that when they want to borrow money from me, they gotta call Tom. Tom don't sound like a brother, by the way. Tom sounds like one of her white friends that runs that manages the books. And I ain't gonna lie, I'm telling you the truth. I used to change my baby brother's diapers. I did when he was little, and I took very good care of him, and I loved him when no one else did other than his family. And I'll be damned if my brother goes off and becomes a billionaire, and then I'm looking for an investor for a project, or I'm even let's say I'm just looking for some support, and he tells me to go talk to Tom. I'm gonna be like, Tom wasn't there when your little ass didn't have a pot to piss in. Tom wasn't there when you was a regular little black boy in the hood. Tom showed up when you got rich. Tom wanted to be your friend the same way every athlete meets a Tom when he signed his NFL contract. But Tom didn't know who the hell you were when you weren't signed with the Dallas Cowboys. So come on, Negro. What is going on here? Again, I'm not criticizing Melody Hobbs, but when she said that part about like I tell my relatives to talk to Tom, I was like, man, F Tom. Like who the hell is Tom? I would be angry. She said some of the relatives feel some kind of way about that. And I'm like, yeah, I kind of would too. Like can't you establish boundaries without sort of doing this weird thing, right? And so I would just say this. Look, I'm not here to tell you that she's wrong. I'm not here to say that at all. Some of you may have heard what she said and completely agree with it. And I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm saying this. There I believe that it's okay to remember that when you talk about money, there are some things more important than money. Um, I think that being loyal to others requires you to sometimes make decisions that are not necessarily always in your own best financial interest. I'm not saying you should let people drive you into poverty, right? I'm not saying that. What I am saying though is if you are investing in loved ones or taking care of the people who took care of you and your heart drives you to do that, even if you don't get a financial return on investment, that's okay. It's all right. It's okay. Like, so let's say that, let's say Melody says, gosh, George, when I married you, we were worth $5.3 billion. But because I was so overly committed to being my mother's retirement plan, we're only worth $5.1 billion. So I cost our family $200 million because I'm just so dang generous and I care so much about these people that raised me. That's not a crime. There's nothing wrong with that. Like that's not, George be like, shut up. What woman? Hey, do an Ike Turner on it, like you wasted my money, girl. Like, no, you're rich. Stop it. Stop it. You don't have to count every nickel when you're that wealthy. I get it. I understand. Preserve your wealth. But there's a point, I think, and you don't have to have $5 billion to do this. I think you can have half a million or million or 2 million or something. Some of you are rich, and I think that there's a point where you can say, it didn't necessarily make good financial sense, but I just did it because it was the right thing to do, or it's something that I want to do, or this person has been there with me since the beginning. And yeah, I know that they didn't do the stuff with the money they said they were going to do. I know they didn't pay me back, but it's okay. I can afford to let the money go because I'm rich and I'm still as rich as I was before they came and asked me for money. And but my point is not to try to persuade you to take any particular approach. I'm not doing that. I want to make that. Let me know if you get what I'm saying. I'm not here telling you that she's wrong. I'm not here telling you that she's right. I'm here telling you that it's okay for you to blend money and love in a productive way. That's what I'm saying. I think it's okay for you to make a decision financially that doesn't necessarily make good in terms of an ROI. Like in one example, for one thing I'll lay out for example is a lot of people consider kids to be a bad investment because kids, it's an expense. It's going to cost you several $100,000 to raise each child, and a lot of people, you see millions of people trading their children for a career. Like they because they get a fancy job, they'll say, "Well, I couldn't have any kids because my work was so important to me." I don't know if that's necessarily the trade-off that you're going to be happy about when you're laying on your deathbed. I don't think the corporation is going to be with you when you're in hospice care at 85 years old, but your children will be there. Your children, they'll drop everything to be by your side if you were a great parent. The corporation is going to replace you with somebody that's healthy enough to do the work, right? So I'm not telling people how to make that decision, but I am saying that when you think about what it means to get a return on your investment, it has to go deeper than money. It cannot stop. The buck cannot just stop with the buck, right? You can't just sort of say, well, gosh, this didn't make me any money or this cost me money. Yeah, I have people in my family that I love dearly. And if you looked at the things I've done for them and what I got in return, you would say, Boyce, you ain't nothing but a sucker. That was such a terrible investment. What a waste of time. But in my heart, I'm like, no, it wasn't because we're closer and we're connected and they know that I have their back and I'm still rich. I didn't go broke. I'm not in, now mind you, now if they ruin me financially, that's a different conversation. But if I know, hey, let me $200, okay, here you go. $1,000, yeah, there you go, right? I think it's okay for you to do that because part of what wealth should give you is freedom and power. I want you to have freedom. I want you to have power. Freedom is a type of power. And when you have freedom and power, that means you can sometimes do things because you just want to do it. Well, why'd you do it? Well, because I said so. Because I just want to do it. I don't have to explain this to anybody. I don't have to get anybody to understand why I love this person or why I really want to do this. I was very happy to be part of my mother's retirement plan. You know why? Because right now I do not have a mother. My mother's in heaven right now. And it hurts my heart when I think about it. It makes me want to cry every time I think about the fact my mother's gone. And I'll be damned. I would feel so bad if I had looked over this time, this precious short amount of time I had with my mother, and rejected her anything she wanted just because I'm trying to save a couple of bucks. Like that to me would be very hurtful for me, right? And so some of you have that same degree of love for somebody in your life, and I think it's okay for you to say, yeah, this didn't make me any money, but it was the right thing to do. It felt good to do this. Make sure you feel good with the choices you make. Don't let the world tell you what's right or what's wrong, or just all these judgmental statements people make on the internet, like, "Oh, you love your wife, you must be a simp." No, I love my wife. Call me what you want, but I love this woman. I'm going. That's who I'm going to be. I'm standing on that. I don't care what you think about whether or not I'm not getting something out of the deal that you think I should be getting. This is what works for me. So anyway, let me keep going. Let me move on. I didn't mean to sound judgmental, but I had to share that point. All right, so let's move on to the next thing. First, the next thing I want to mention really quickly. Some of you were asking about the Dr. Alicia thing. So let me see if I can share the link. If you want to go get the recording of her training. We saved it somewhere. I'm gonna put it in the chat, and you guys can go and grab it if you want to. Here it is. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna put the link in here, and feel free to go and grab it. It's the she did the trauma healing seminar, and I think that healing from trauma, that's a really important part of investing. If you find yourself a little bit nervous, or either selling your stocks too early, or you're seeing things happen and you're feeling a little bit of FOMO because maybe you missed out on something because you couldn't sort of pull the trigger, then the therapy really helps with that. That's why we have the whole Black Financial Therapy department in the Black Business School. All right, so here's another thing I wanted to share with you guys that I thought was interesting. Just a little, I don't know, I just put random stuff up and I just thought it would be fun to kind of elaborate on some of it. So this is kind of cool. I saw this online. It says, it's easy to look sharp when you haven't done any work. So you see here, you got a dull pencil and a sharp pencil. The sharp pencil looks better, but the dull pencil has been doing the work. And I think that that's such a great metaphor for life. A lot of people spend more energy trying to look successful than actually being successful. They spend money, they waste money trying to look good instead of actually being good. They care more about maybe it's flexing for the gram or putting up an appearance than they care about actually getting in there and doing the down and dirty work required to be successful. So there's a lot of flash. People honor flash over substance. And I want to remind those of you that are about substance, and I hope all of you will consider this, because substance is what matters. Substance is what gives you real power. Substance is what defines the integrity of who you are and what you represent. Keep being that, and because you're living in this interesting world, like where, for example, I feel really bad about the fact that there are so many smart black women on the internet that are giving like amazing advice and information, and they have maybe 800 followers or whatever, but then there'll be some lady who's just showing her booty on Instagram and she'll have a million followers. That's got to be infuriating, right? So and it's so really the society we live in is all about the flash, but the substance eventually reigns supreme. So keep going for the substance. If you're the raggedy business owner who's got that business that ain't made two nickels, you are the substance. You're not the flash. You're putting in the work. You're going through the process, and then one day, I argue that one day you will emerge victorious. This is something funny. I just thought this was hilarious. I saw Shaquille O'Neal in this picture of this white girl, and I said, "Oh, he's gonna be like Shannon Sharp, this poor guy." All right, I'm gonna move forward. I'm gonna skip through this. Oh, here's something I shared that I thought was really cool. This has to do with how money drives attraction. I've noticed, when I wrote my book Financial Lovemaking when I was on the faculty of Syracuse, I was really just sort of heavily influenced or heavily I was just super curious about about the attraction to money and how money makes for some women, especially if they have financial trauma as children, maybe they dealt with poverty, money literally becomes the one-dimensional variable that makes a man a good man versus a bad man. And I just thought about all the really bad men I've known that I've met who in life who had lots of money, and how the money just sort of became like sugar coated shit where you've got this you're putting lipstick on a pig, so you got this terrible human being who is doing horrible things to people, like say a Diddy, and he's impressing women because of the money that he has, and people that are not financially conscious. Consciousness is awareness, the ability to have a multidimensional way of looking at things as opposed to one dimensional. People who are not conscious would fall in those traps. So just remember that the devil always shows up with a pocket full of money, or he knows what your wildest dreams are. There's more stuff. I'm going to skip through some of this. There's Joby Aviation. I don't know how many of you own Joby stock, but remember, that's the eVTOL space. And why did I invest in that? Well, because I like the narrative. I like the idea of these electric vertical takeoff and landing vehicles. That's what eVTOL stands for. And so I invested heavily in Joby, and Joby's doing quite well. It's up 223% this year. So congrats to you that have participated in Joby. Joby, if you do options, Joby's also good for stock options. So if you want to generate income from the stock, then you can do that as well. Now the thing about it too is, because things are so elevated, when I buy stocks, one of the first things I do immediately is I do something that we talk about in prime class called the Dr. Boyce Cashback Plan, which means that if I go spend, say, 10,000 buying a new stock, because the price is so elevated, I'll instantly pull back $3,000 or $4,000 by selling a long-term covered call option on that stock. that reduces the cost. It's almost like buying the stock at a discount. It also gives me extra cushion in case that stock collapses, because you have a lot of stocks that could easily collapse. Like Oklo, for example. A lot of you own Oklo. It's gone up what, 3 or 400, so actually 1,500% in the last year, because we started talking about when it was $8 a share. Now it's 141. So if I was to buy Oklo now, I would instantly sell long-term out of the money call options, because that stock could easily drop from 141 back down to 30, 40, or 50 or something like that. So just kind of keep that in mind as you move forward and prepare for the future. All right, so here's one more thing. Oh, yeah. So here's one more thing I wanted to share as well. Um, I forgot who I was talking to about this, but I thought I would share this with you. If you want sort of a simple framework to make sure your children are going to do well in the future, there are three things we believe in the Black Business School. One is that every Black child should own shares of stock from the day that they're born. Number two, every Black child should know how to start a business by the age of 12. Number three, every Black child should know the difference between owning real estate and renting real estate. If you do those three things, your children will probably be rich. They will probably be wealthy, and so that's another little point that's in there. Now, by the way, some of you are asking how to be part of this Zoom. If you're watching on Instagram or something, just text the word morning to the number 87948. Text morning to 87948, and I'll invite you to class every day. And then also, periodically, about once every week or two, I'll send a link directly to the Zoom, and you can join the private Zoom. A few hundred of you are in here. A few of you are watching from other places. All right. So here's a video with Killer Mike. Killer Mike is my buddy. I've known Killer Mike for about maybe how many years? I think I met Mike in 2013, and I love Mike because Mike came to. We had our first All Black National Convention in 2015. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I'd never done an event or convention before. The All Black National Convention came to me in a dream, and I kid you not. And when something comes in a dream, I assume it came from God. And so God said you should have a convention and you should call it the All Black National Convention. Literally, that's what happened. So I called my friend Dr. Lene Javette and I said, I want to have a convention and I want to do it in Atlanta. I want to call it the All Black National Convention and I want to do it in 3 weeks. I didn't even know at that time how ridiculous that is. You cannot plan a convention in 3 weeks, so don't ever try it. It's not for the faint of heart. It's a stupid thing to do. But I had friends, and I called my friends, and they all came to Atlanta, and I just have so much appreciation for that. We didn't have no money, and two hip hop artists that came through. There were actually three. There's one brother named Yurima Karama, who I just respect so much, and then David Banner, who's a little more mainstream, is a great guy, and Killer Mike. They all agreed to come in, and they just did a great job. And Killer Mike, I have so much respect for him for that. And so he was on the Breakfast Club, and he said something to the host on the Breakfast Club, DJ Envy, about education that I thought was worth repeating. I'm going to play this for you, and then I'm going to kind of give you a breakdown and an assessment of this in terms of what we might want to look for. So here it goes. All right, so let me know. Give me a yes if you can hear this in the comments. I'm about to play it right now. DJ Envy, explain for me. Okay, so let me play that again. I had to watch this clip several times to really process my own thoughts on this. But literally every time I watch it, I see something different. So let's watch it again, and I want you to think deeply about what Mike is saying, and then I'll give you kind of a perspective on it. So here it goes. Let's play it again. Explain. Okay, so everybody was able to hear that, right? Let me know if you're able to hear that. There was no sound. Oh my God. Oh, I'm so mad. I'm so mad. I'm so sorry. Sheesh. Let me do it again. Gosh dang it. This is what happens when I don't look at the chat. I'm so sorry, everybody. So let me play it again. Here it goes.
Explains wealth changes the fight.
Tell me,
Then says
can you hear it now? Can you hear it now?
name calling hits different with money and questions college in a way you won't expect.
You are rich. You got white folks' money. So you are not going to endure the same hostilities that a working class black parent is who's living in Atlanta or Gwinnett.
It's been hostile. It's been
I didn't say being your dad got a Ferrari just don't hurt as much. You know what I'm saying? With all the great education you got, you turned out to be a DJ and a real estate investor. You didn't have to go to college.
Not a DJ, an entrepreneur, bro.
We both got millions of dollars of property. We both do cool, but we make our money singing and dancing. That's what we make our money doing. If you can't send your children to Woodward, if you can't send your children to St. Wherever, I'm saying to put confident children in the world. See, because we always love that cop out of, hey man, you know, we sent my children there for a better education, but the same, you telling me how much they paid for college. Your children ain't rewarding that by scholarshiping. The education only teach you Egypt is in Africa. Don't teach you to be proud of nothing about yourself. It just teaches you how to take tests well and how to participate and coordinate according to the system and the way they teach you. And you never thought I could start my own monastery.
In on DJ Envy.
Okay, did everybody hear it this time? I'm so embarrassed. I'm so sorry I didn't. I should have looked at the chat. And I apologize for that. But thank you for your patience. And I'll next time I'll make sure I double check that. All right, so here's what I'm picking up from what Mike was saying in that video. I took notes actually because I wanted to sort of lay out a couple points to help you think about this. So he starts off talking about the difference between being rich and poor, rich and working class, right? And we know that if you are rich and black, your experience is going to be very different from being working class and black or poor and black. That's an important point to understand, right? A lot of things that we think are just due to race are also due to class. Class and race are two. So if I had let me ask you this: if you had the choice between being a wealthy black person or a poor white person, which one would you rather be? Who would you rather be? A black man with $10 million in the bank or a poor white man with no money in the bank? I'd rather be the rich black guy. I wouldn't want to be poor and white, right? So class supersedes almost everything else in America, because America is a capitalist society. Capitalism pretty much honors those who have the most wealth. But then the second piece that he brought up when he was saying to DJ Envy, he said, "Look, you went to school, but you became a DJ." And then I think Envy says, "Well, no, I'm an entrepreneur." But Mike is like, basically, we make our money singing and dancing. And at first, I was trying to connect that to what he was talking about later. And what I'm gathering is what he was saying was he made that one point where he said, we got to put more confident children in the world, right? Confident children, children that are proud of who they are, which really circles back to what we've talked about before, knowledge of self. Knowledge, when you have knowledge of self and love of self, then you have self-esteem. Self-esteem and confidence are tremendous determinants of how you end up economically in this world. If you have confidence and you can walk into a boardroom with billionaires and do your thing, that's going to make a difference in your economic outcomes. Confidence means if I have a great business idea, I'm going to confidently pursue the idea, which maximizes my odds of success. Do you understand? That confidence really also means, and he mentions this at the end, it was a very subtle point. He talks about the difference between an unconfident black person who feels like, oh God, I gotta fit into the system, so they'll give me an opportunity, versus a confident person who says, if you don't find a place for me in your system, that's okay. I'm gonna go start my own over here. Does that make sense? Do you follow what I'm saying? Right? Because here's the thing. It's not going to be the low confidence Negroes that are going to get us out of this situation. Scared black people are not going to make progress for anybody, because the distance that a scared black man or black woman will go in this society is solely and completely determined by the will of white people and the goodwill of white. Whatever they choose to allow you to do is what you're going to be able to do. That's the reality of it all. Let's just be honest. So they're driving the car, and you're just showing up with a little ticket saying, "Sir, I got my degree. Here's my ticket, sir. Can you just let me into the car?" So the car is their economic engine. They've got their economy and their society and their institutions. And we show up with this thing called a college degree, and we say, "I got my ticket. Can I get in the car too with everybody?" And then if they have room in the car, they'll let you in. At any point, they can put you out of the car. because it's their car. And the direction of the car, you have no say in where that car is going to drive. You're a passenger. You're in the back seat. You might even be in the trunk. You're just glad to have a seat in the car. You're just glad to feel like you're going somewhere. But those are not the black people that are going to lead the economic revolution. The people that are going to lead the economic revolution are the ones who establish the know-how and the desire and the confidence to say, if I don't like riding in your car, I can go build a car of my own. I'm going to create my own vehicle to wealth, prosperity, power, success, whatever it is that I believe in. And that really starts with what Mike was talking about in this video, which is that we focus so much sometimes in education on the so-called educational aspect of it that we don't talk about the confidence, emotional, and love aspect of education. See, the reason I struggled in school as a kid, I told, at the University of Kentucky, I told you I was the best. I had the highest grade point average of all the black students on campus. In high school, I didn't do very well. I did terribly, and I didn't realize until I was about 40 that the reason I did so bad in high school and middle school is because nobody loved me. I didn't feel like I belonged there. I didn't fit in. There was nobody there injecting confidence in me by saying, you can do this. You're better than this. You're capable, Boyce. Look at how talented you are. I didn't get that. All I heard was some white lady from the suburbs constantly telling me why I was getting put in detention again, or what was wrong with me, or why I don't fit in because I didn't go to school and act like a little white girl, sit down, shut up, and take instructions and regurgitate whatever bullshit they put into my head. And so at the end of the day, what he said about confident children is very important. And I know Mike personally, so I can tell you this is a guy that has a tremendous amount of confidence. And I do too. I'm not rapper confident, but in terms of like I may not do it in the same way, but we're confident guys. I like who I am, he likes who he is. And so confidence will carry you a long way. Confidence is a very big part of investing. Confidence is also undermined by things like trauma. Traumatized people who haven't healed have a really hard time with confidence. Confidence is what helps you to face risk. Risk is a big part of investing. A confident person sees the risk, they see the problems, they see the challenges, they say, oh, it's going to be okay. It's going to work itself out, right? The universe will pull it all together. Everything is everything. What's going to be is going to be. It's going to be all right. I'm going to be fine, right? That's what confident people can do. Traumatized, unconfident people, the minute something goes wrong, they bail, they bolt. They can't stay. Sometimes they can't stay in relationships very long. The minute that something happens that hurts their self-esteem, it's like I gotta go, I gotta leave because you hurt my feelings this month, right? A confident person says, "Oh, that's my wife. Sometimes she's a little mean, but I love her, and we're married, and we're gonna stick this out." Right? A confident person can buy shares of stock, they can watch it collapse a little bit, and they're going to say, oh, well, I still think this is a good company. They're just having a bad 6 months. Let me buy some more shares of this company, right? And then they hold on. And then when things get better, they get all these extra rewards because they have the ability to maintain focus during the difficult times. An unconfident person, the minute they see something crack, the minute things kind of drop a little bit, they freak out and they run. They sell all their stock and they miss out on all the good in the world. They don't get the rewards of being a long-term investor because they sprinted away the minute any problem arrived. So when I heard him talk about confidence, I said, "Oh my God, that's the missing piece, and that's the easy piece." And it's easy because it's not that hard to boost a child's self-esteem if you just love them and tell them that they can do anything. And my mother, the way my mother boosted my confidence was she would just say stuff like, anything you put energy into is gonna pay off. Just stuff like that, and you can do anything that you put your mind to. It's very simple stuff. And what that was really saying was if you remain a consistent investor, putting energy into something, if you remain a consistent investor, then the universe is going to give you your reward. It's going to be all right. You may not get it right away. When I was in grad school, when I was 27 years old, still in school, very embarrassed about that, my mother was like, anything you put energy into is going to pay off. And right now, you're just setting your foundation for the rest of your life. What she was saying is that what you're doing educationally is a long-term investment. It's a little bit dark right now, but maintain confidence, maintain faith, and it's going to be fine. Just keep investing. Be a consistent investor. And I'll be damned if she wasn't right. So she didn't need advanced degrees to get this to me. She didn't need to sort of know all the science and everything. She just knew basic ideas. She had these basic ideas, and those basic ideas carried me a long way. So what I would say to you is, as you teach your children to invest, don't disconnect that from other important aspects of what it means to be Black in America, which means knowledge of self, loving yourself, being proud of yourself. And that's what a lot of my wife had a lot of that when she grew up in Gary, Indiana. She grew up in a space where there were no white people hardly. She didn't go to school with white people. She didn't have white teachers. It was black, 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 everything. So when they did extraordinary stuff, they didn't say, well, look at how unique we are. Look at how special we are. We're so different from the other Negroes. No, she literally was like, this is what black people do. Sometimes black people are stupid. Sometimes they're smart. Sometimes they're lazy. Sometimes we work hard. But there's a whole variation, there's a whole variety of outcomes. And all those outcomes are available to us based on what we choose to do. They didn't say, well, only the white kids are in the advanced classes and the black kids are supposed to be in the classes for learning disabled people, right? They didn't think that way. They did. It wasn't until she went to Indiana University and got exposed to the rest of the world that she started to see that variation. But by that time, her Gary, Indiana upbringing with black teachers and black business people and a black father and black friends and black people of different backgrounds, that gave her enough confidence where she didn't walk into a room full of smart white people and somehow feel that she's inferior. Right? And this is what Mike, when Mike was talking about that, I think they were debating about public and private schools and all that, and how he grew up. He said, my schools were named after black people. I had black teachers. I went to school with rich black people. I had all this confidence instilled in me so that when I came into the world of white folks, I didn't feel somehow inferior. Right. And so really, I would say that this is one of the reasons why one thing that we believe is in the black business schools, the black core of three. We believe black people should educate our own children, create our own jobs, and support black owned businesses. There's absolutely nothing that other people do for you that you can't do for yourself. There's very little they can. I mean, maybe they can build rocket ships to Mars or something. That might take some work. But we could probably do that too if we get the resources, right? But even beyond that, when it comes to educating our kids, one of the biggest mistakes we make is when we drop our kids right in the middle of enemy territory where they're being sort of mistreated, yelled at, talked about as if they're inferior, and then they spend their whole life trying to play catch up. They're trying to fit in. They're trying to become the Melody Hobson at Princeton as opposed to just being whatever it was that they were before Princeton came along. In fact, Princeton is an interesting school because they actually have a really popular it's called the Woodrow Wilson School for Public Policy, and a lot of people don't know how racist Woodrow Wilson was. Woodrow Wilson hated black people. But there are a lot of black people running around who are very proud to have graduated from an institution named after a man who absolutely despised black people. In fact, there are some that actually speculate that he was a member of the Ku Klux Klan. That's how desperate we are for that validation. That's how needy we become. And when you become that needy for validation because you don't have it from somewhere else, then what happens is somebody comes along and the devil will sell you your validation. They'll say, "Oh, you don't feel like you feel like you're a nobody. That's okay. Just give me that $5,000 and I'll give you a little certificate that'll make you feel like you are somebody." Right? And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with grabbing those things. If that's what you want, that's fine, but that puts you in an economically desperate situation. When you're desperate to acquire something that someone else has, that really ends up making you somewhat vulnerable. That's why the Buddhists have a great philosophy on the one. I'm not an expert on this at all, so if I say it wrong, forgive me. But one thing that they say is you should want nothing, right? And I was like, what does that mean? Want nothing? And I thought about it, and I was like, I get it because we become trapped by our desires. Right? Whatever your emotional void is, and that thing is that you want, like I gotta be validated, I gotta be somebody, I gotta fit in, then that unfortunately exposes you to the ill will of those who become gatekeepers to the things that you desire, right? And it's okay to want those things, but when you get to the point where you gotta have it, then that's when people end up doing desperate things in order to obtain it. Do you understand? Like that's why I went to the Diddy party because I so badly wanted to be a successful hip hop artist. And next thing you know, I go there, I get drugged and raped, and I'm wondering what happened, right? So I would say that with our kids, I think that if we raise confident kids, raising confident kids is about as smart as raising raising educated kids. I mean, I think education and confidence should go together. But if you gave me a choice between being a really confident person with mediocre ability versus an unconfident person with extraordinary ability, I'd rather be the confident person with mediocre ability. I saw that a lot in academia. I literally went to school and interacted with some of the smartest human beings on the planet. They had their doctorates in their little specialized areas, but in many cases, their confidence was incredibly low. They were slaves to the university. They were all scared to death of what the university would do to them if they ever got out of line. So they had all this intellectual power, this firepower, where they literally could go out and do almost anything they want to do. But because the university whittled away at their confidence so badly, they literally didn't do much of anything. So if you have power and you're too scared to use it, if you have ability and you don't have the confidence to use that ability to the fullest of your ability, then that's almost like having no power and no capability at all. Do you see what I mean? Like the ability to confidently take chances, know that sometimes it's not going to work out, but yet to still know that it's going to be okay eventually. That is critically important if you ever want to be a good investor. If you ask any person who's ever become a millionaire, billionaire, or anything else, that person will always point to how their ability to maintain confidence under pressure was essential for their ability to come to, for their success. It's very hard to win if you're scared all the time. So confident children, I think that's really important. I think that's rooted in the self-esteem or the trauma healing. That trauma takes your confidence away. It scares you. It makes you think about, you see risk and you only see the dark side of it. You don't see all the great things that can happen if you take the chance. You're only looking at all the bad things that will happen if it doesn't work out. So not only do you give that to your kids, you give that to yourself, and that's why things like the therapy and all that stuff are really, really important. All right. So anyway, I'm done talking. I hope that I got the point across. I want to apologize again for what happened with the audio. I feel so stupid about that. See, look at me. See, this is an example, right? My confidence will get me through, right? It's like, oh, they still love you, boys. It's gonna be okay. But I still feel a little bit embarrassed. I ain't gonna lie. I'm like, oh man, dang it, I messed it up. But it's okay. You can mess up, but that doesn't mean you're messed up. That means you're still great. You just made a mistake. It's okay. Everybody does it. All right. So anyway, that's it. So I want to say thank you. It was great to see you all tonight. Powernomics training at 8:30. If you want to join us, you can text the word greatness to the phone number 87948 if you'd like to join us. And also, last night we did stock options again. So if you want to join us for a stock options class, feel free to go to drboyceprime.com, drboyceprime.com. All right. So have a good day, everybody. God bless.